Morning, Logan.
What's that?
We've got a couple minutes before we kick off. There's a handful of people that have joined already, so I figured I'd throw my camera back on and at least let people know that we're here, you know.
Is it already being broadcast out?
Not being broadcast, not being live streamed. We are
Oh,
recording this, so we're actually going to be sending out a YouTube video. We're going to put this on YouTube and send out the recording to anyone who signed up for this webinar and the previous ones as
nice.
well. Yeah. It's a good way to have content on hand. The last two webinars, the last two webinars, I've actually sent the copies to my sales team, design team at Cornerstone. Like, hey, you guys need to watch this. I know it's me, but just don't pay attention to me. Pay attention to the person I'm interviewing, and they have a lot of really good ideas. And it's funny. I'm hosting these webinars, and it's still providing me a ton of value for my own remodeling business. So it's great to be able to foster these kind of conversations for people, but at the same time get a lot of value out of them myself. I love it.
Yeah, we like with like this specific one. I've like presented this to my team several times. Partially, it's for feedback how to go, but it's also to make sure that we have like a cohesive message in how we're explaining things. I because of like being in this industry, like to try to explain SEO to a new company is like so hard to do. So I have like learned how to use analogies. So like I just have years and years and years of using analogies to explain stuff. So a lot of this stuff is also like teaching the team like, hey, if you're trying to get this point across, this is an analogy that I've used that works for me. So it's really just trying to get consistent messaging out there amongst the team. So
We talked last week about scripting and making sure that you have like almost a rehearsal piece down for sales, for sales messaging, for marketing messaging, and so on.
yeah.
Well, hey, it's a great segue. It is officially 11 o'clock, so we'll probably let people kind of join as the next couple of minutes go by. But I'll just start by welcoming everybody to this fourth part of our webinar series called Maximize. This one really has been mostly about just helping companies get connected to a lot of really powerful individuals in the space to help learn and just foster this environment of like education about how to maximize your business potential through a uh, various set of topics, right? So we kicked off this webinar series with Kyle Hunt. He's the consultant business coach in our space. This is part one. We focused on some very important foundational pieces to like business success. Knowing your financials, keeping a pulse on those numbers, how to understand your metrics, developing processes. The second one that we did here was on design. We invited Bruce Case of the very prestigious Case Architects and Remodeling company. It's one of the largest remodeling companies in the US. We spent time on that one just breaking down the mechanics of a really like a well-oiled design build machine. And this is one of the ones that I came away with a lot of stuff for my own team at Cornerstone. And just last week, we met with Steve Meidinger. He's a sales coach and revenue strategist. We went about kind of talking through sound sales practices, process, methodology. And my own sales team is actually now spending an 8-hour day with him tomorrow so that we can help perfect things at Cornerstone. If you're not aware, when we had this webinar, we were brainstorming this idea of perhaps launching a design build workshop, a sales workshop just for design build companies around the country. We don't know what it's going to look like yet, but the idea came up and seemed to be a lot of interest in remodeling companies kind of coming together in the same room, whether virtual or in person. We're not really sure. It's likely going to be virtual. Doing some mini sessions and just talking about sales process. So if you're interested on this webinar, if you missed that one, follow up with me. I can send you the recording. But if you're interested in something like that, a design build workshop, just definitely hit me up. So that leads me to this. I'm going to be introducing our fourth part in this series. And today we're going to be talking about maximizing content. We've had a lot of conversations, Logan, about this, and I'm happy to have you kind of sharing a lot of insights on this thing. So without further ado, let me have you introduce yourself. So we met each other, I guess, a couple years ago. It seems like we're trade show roadies, right? We're always at trade shows together. Um, and I know a little bit about you, but the people who are listening may not know a whole lot. So go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of what gives you the microphone today.
Sure. So I actually grew up. Funny story. I grew up very close to AJ, or like where he is now. So
That's
I'm
right.
like one town over. So when I say, "Oh, I'm from Burtonsville," nobody knows it, but AJ actually
I
knew where it
do.
was.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny how that works out. But so I got into this whole marketing space because I now own a digital marketing company because my dad up in the DC area, which is where I'm from, had a pond and water feature company, which if you don't know much about koi ponds, it's kind of like somebody wants you to come into their house, put in a $50,000, $60,000 water feature in their backyard. It's a lot of the same sales processes and sales objections and things like that that a lot of design build companies are going to go through because it's all a once thing and not like necessarily like I need to have this thing in my backyard. Take my money. So he had this company and he did everything very high end, really big on the client experience, really big. You know, I remember like I used to work for them in the summer times and he would make us do this stuff like leave the project better than how you found it and all the stuff that like it's small little things, but it makes such a big difference where the team shows up, shakes the hands of the homeowners, introduces themselves, soft rakes the grass where we leave, things like that. And what was happening was he was had just a general marketing agency that was trying to get him more work because this was like at the time where he was officially switching from the yellow pages over to this thing called Google.
Oh
And he was
man.
like, Logan, yeah, he's like, I'm getting just tons of people coming to me, but they all just think that I'm like the chuck in a truck. And in reality, like I'm twice the price as everybody else because I pay my guys a lot more. We do all these little things correct that if you only knew what it looked like to work with our company, you would actually spend the extra money to work with us because when you work with us at a higher price point, you're only going to cry once. But if you work with the cheaper person, it's going to be over and over and over again. So I started doing all the marketing for his company because I took it over from the other marketing company and it started to work really well because at the time, I had just graduated college. I have an engineering degree, funny enough, so nothing to even do with marketing.
It's funny
But I
how that
did,
happens.
yeah, chemical engineering. So like yeah, it is what it is. But
We won't go there.
yeah, so I had that as my background, and I was like, look, I don't know much about marketing, but I have a Facebook page. Let me see what I can do. And um, over the next 3 years, I was doing the marketing for his company, and it was working so well that his other buddies, who are also contractors, reached out to me to say, can you do the same thing for me? Because my whole thing was I didn't know enough about marketing to try all the gimmicky stuff. I just truly showed what it looked like to work with his company and then let the market decide, is this worth the extra money or not? And it all came in the form of content and storytelling. And again, I didn't know enough at the time to realize like that was actually the right path to doing it. And then once enough of his buddies came on to start working with me, I quit my full-time job, did this full-time, and then that was 7 years ago. And I've been doing it ever since. And
Fantastic.
it's funny, come full circle, and then the same stuff that worked then still works now really well.
So your company is Contractor Growth Network,
Yep.
and you primarily work with, obviously from that conversation, you primarily work with design build firms, firms that actually need to tell a little bit more of a story, right? Because for us, it's more of a process, it's more relational. We're really getting into the front end of discovering their pain and walking them through and figuring out what they need, selling to that, right? And then producing it, but also leveraging all of those jobs that we produce. We'll talk about this today for like one of your big things is like use your current jobs or your previous jobs for your next ones, right? Taking a lot of the stuff that we can, all the media that you can pack into like extracting from that previous job and using that to put your best foot forward to get more and more of that type of work. Um, so I love your approach to this. I love your approach on video. If you guys, as you guys watch this webinar, towards the tail end, I do have a QR code that can get you right in touch with Logan if you have further questions or follow up, or even want to work with his firm. So if you don't know me, we have some that are registered, I guess, from your side, Logan, who may not know who I am. So just a brief introduction. My name's AJ. I too came from the home improvement sphere. My dad's side of the family was all construction. My mom's side of the family was all architecture and real estate. So I kind of like put the two and two together. I launched my own design build company in 2011 called Cornerstone Remodeling. We've scaled that up in recent years to just about $8 million in revenue, just shy of that. And my biggest staple that I like to tell people, like what's your role in a company of that size? And I don't have one now. It's funny. I've worked myself out of a job. I still have ownership of the company with my business partner, but I maybe spend 2 to 3 hours a week working on that business. It's phenomenal. So I get a lot of questions about how did you do that? It's like a dream come true for a lot of people to build a business that can kind of self-operate, right? You can take the extra time as an owner to pour back into the business, to focus on family. We have two more kids coming home through an adoption, so it's like perfect timing for me to have a little less on my plate with Cornerstone. But I'm not sitting here twiddling my thumbs. I did launch another company just a few years ago called Render. If you don't know what it is, we'll talk a little bit about it today, towards the tail end of this webinar. But it's really a software that's helping a couple hundred businesses across the US save a lot of time in their sales process. So eliminating that cycle time, that we spend a lot of, with the design build mechanics and I'm a thought leader on remote engagement in the home improvement space. Like we came up with a phenomenal idea back in 2020, won an award for it for the thought of, can I actually sell projects remotely? Can I have an estimator that lives, in a basement somewhere blocked away that he can just estimate projects all day without even going into the home and seeing them? And the answer is yes, you can. You can scale with a business quite like that. So without further ado, this webinar again is focused on content, putting it in the right places, getting the right content, featuring the right stuff, getting in front of the right audience. So we're going to be talking about these topics today. And this is the first webinar, Logan, that I have that I'm not going to be parked on one slide. I'm actually going to use a lot of the content that you share with me because it was brilliant content. I watched your video and I just felt like that was worth sharing in this setting as well. So we'll kind of kick it off. Logan, I'll just kind of the first thing that you spoke about the last time we were together was you have to know your audience. So as we talk about a lot of the marketing stuff that we'll talk about today, it all starts with knowing the right audience, getting in front of the person that you want to sell to. And I think I explained this last time we spoke was at Cornerstone, we had to figure out our ICP. If you don't know what that is, it's an acronym. I live in acronyms. My team hates it. ICP, ideal customer profile. Who buys from your company? If you really get down to the root of it, who buys from your company? It's not just going to be homeowners with a lot of money, right? You're going to start to understand personalities, their profile. Like we figured out at Cornerstone, it was working families. Both the spouses worked, and so because of that, they didn't have the time really to spend, really get into the weeds with their remodeling projects. They wanted a white glove service. So of course, there's geography, there's demographics that come into play on this, but really we started to figure out who our exact customer was, who actually needs our service, not just so-and-so's service, who actually needs ours. How can we find them? And to your point, where do they shop? What do they like? Right. So talk to me about this a little bit, knowing your audience and using examples from just websites online.
Yeah, so one of the big things in the DB space is that a lot of people watching this or in the design build space, they've never hired another remodeling company and gone through the process of redoing their kitchen because they've just done it themselves. So it's very hard to put yourself in the shoes of the consumer and have the empathy for what somebody's going to go through. So it's not always the easiest thing to just like know exactly what your prospect is thinking at each stage in the marketing or buyer's journey. So one of the easiest things to do is look at what the other brands that your clients are already buying from that are related to your space. Because I remember like when I first had to do this for my dad's company back in the day, we were like, well, they like Costco. And they're like, perfect, write that down. And I'm like writing down like clients like Costco. Do we go get a Costco booth? Do we need to sell ponds in bulk? Like, what does that even mean? And as time has gone on, I've realized that like these larger brands that sell like and in this space remodeling, like interior designers, architects, high-end furniture companies, if they are a larger company, they probably know what is working really well because they have whole teams of marketing people that are like sitting there testing everything. So one of the easiest things to do is when you want to really understand like how does your brand need to look or how do you need to engage with your clientele, just look at the furniture that they're buying. Because if you're going to a West Elm or a Restoration Hardware, I mean, you're not getting out of there with a couch that's less than $8,000, right? So when you're looking at what somebody's going to be spending $8,000 on and how Restoration Hardware or West Elm position themselves, and then you look at your thing and you're like, well, I'm $200,000. You can't look worse from a branding perspective than what they're buying for $8,000. So you need to make sure that when you are thinking about how do I get in my consumer's head and how do I need to look and things like that, just look at what the brands that your clients are already buying from, look at what they're doing and how they're positioning themselves. And we'll get
And it's a
pushback.
simple,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's just simple. Like some of the examples that I have on the screen here, just I looked up, some very common Pottery Barn, Restoration Hardware, and like you said, West Elm. If you just look at the photos that they're putting on their website, the Restoration Hardware one down to the bottom right corner, the lighting is spot on. The features in this particular thing, they're very well lit. It's beautiful image, and that's brand. You have a quote. You shared a quote, and forgive me, I don't have it in here, from Steve Jobs. If you think of the ultimate brand that is out there, Apple has done a phenomenal job over the years of just crafting their brand as professional, cutting edge, sleek, creative. Um, they're expensive, but that's not the first thing that you think of when you see Apple products, right? That's the point of when our customers are buying things like these things, we also need to present ourselves on our own websites with the same type of branding, right?
Yeah, it all, I mean, essentially the summary of the quote is people judge a book by its cover. If the way that we present our products are, he calls it slipshod, but if we present products in a really crappy way, they're going to assume that they're crappy products. But if they look beautiful, which is why Apple is so well known, a huge part of that is the packaging, the branding, how the actual like, you know, Apple is known for being simple. Well, the look of the iPhone is a simple look. So it's very big on when people immediately look at your brand or your company or whatever you're doing, they're going to judge a book by its cover. And you need to make sure that whatever that cover looks like is actually representative of your brand. So,
Perfect. Yeah, perfect segue to let's talk about that. So uh, what we don't want to do as contractors, I think I shared this with you, is we don't want to put photos of half done, half completed work. This is one of the images on the right-hand side. This is one of the images that you had shared with me, and I like the way that you presented this. Too often, contractors are putting up photos on their Instagram and Facebook. I'll use the two probably. Uh,
you can say meta and it covers everything.
Meta. Oh my
Yeah, yeah,
gosh,
yeah.
yeah, Meta. If you're using Meta, any kind of social media platforms, right? A lot of contractors will actually put projects to show progress, right? I mean, those are things that excite us as contractors because, hey, look at all the progress. Look how fast we're doing this project. The homeowners that you're reaching out to on social media platforms do not care about how fast your progress is. They'll care about it when it's time to do their project, but that's not what they're out to see. They're out on social media trying to look at new trends. This up here, this upper right hand image is not, it's not a trend. There is no trend for half completed bathroom remodel, right? So we did this purge of our Instagram. Well, we made the same mistake early on. We were posting pictures of work and then we started to look at our Instagram page and realized that our Instagram, like our grid was just full of like really ugly pictures. I mean, how often do you see that? How often do you see that mistake being made?
All the time.
Yeah.
All
Oh,
the time, from big brands, from little brands. And essentially there's two components that are being missed here. And the first one is understanding what your prospect is actually buying. A lot of people, when I say, well, why do, I don't know, like, why do your prospects buy from you? They're like, oh, we are great at communication. Our follow-up is on point, things like that. And I'm like, well, you missed the mark where you said they need to get their kitchen remodeled. And they're like, oh, well, yeah. But that's a huge part of it is that you forget that at the heart of it, your client and your prospect, they're hiring you for the end result, not for the journey. And the other side of this is when it comes to social media, beautiful things play a lot better. Things that stand out and pop are going to get more engagement, which then means that they're going to actually spread it out to more people. So when you show a during project, not only does it show your prospect not what they're buying, but it also does not go with what the natural Instagram algorithms like. So you're actually having like two misses right there.
Yeah.
So that's
So
huge.
I'll add this as just a point of clarification. So what kind of what you said about they're not buying you for your journey. So they are gonna purchase from us because of the journey. It's a story that we're telling. I think what you meant by that was you're not attracting people. You're not getting the awareness because of the journey. You're getting the awareness from the flashy, look how beautiful our projects are. Look at what we can pull off. Once you're in front of them and having those conversations, certainly that journey does come into play. It's a big part of Cornerstone and how we sell. It's more about the relationships that we're building, how we're taking the pressure off, the stress out of that whole remodeling experience for the homeowners that really gets them going. But when they first found out about Cornerstone, it wasn't that stuff, unless it was a referral, of course. But if they're just on social media, what attracts them to us is the professional images, right? And the video content that we put out. Because we'll talk about here in a minute about how you actually do weave the journey story into a lot of the content that you put together to, again, telling that really good story.
Yeah, you just want to make sure that you're like the story is what backs up the thing, but nobody spends $200,000 on a customer service company that just happens to do kitchens. They lead off with, I need an actual end result from you. And that's why they're coming in the door. And then when they are on the fence of, do I do it? Do I not do it? Do I go with Cornerstone? Do I go with somebody else? The actual experience and the process and everything, that all factors into it. But the first thing that I'm just trying to overemphasize is do not stress to people, this is what our process looks like, because only a very, very small portion of the market is actually in the market to buy from you today. The other 97% of people are either not even close to ready, they're kind of ready, or they're in their information gathering stage, but they're not ready to buy yet. So focus more
Yeah.
on this is what your life can look like at the end of the actual journey, not this is what the journey looks like.
I completely agree. So I've seen a lot of contractors' websites that are very text heavy on the process. We're very proud of our process. We've fine tuned it. We've got it dialed in, and nothing will ever go wrong. Knock on wood. We want people to understand that about our companies, but like you said, that may not be what they're after as early on as it is when they're interacting with the content that they're seeing, right? So professional quality media. So let me let you expand on this a little bit. So when you say professional quality media, I mean, really, how important is it that we're capturing images that look like something that belongs on the cover of Remodeler magazine or on the website of Restoration Hardware?
Super. If you think back to just what we talked about with that process, if I showed you the top image versus the bottom image, and I just said which one of these would you assume that the remodeling company's process is pretty dialed in, it's going to be the bottom image, because just the fact that this image is staged, it's got good lighting, it tells the story of somebody that actually lives in the bathroom already. You're going to assume that if somebody's going to have the wherewithal to show something that looks like this, it's probably a good process. It's the same thing where if you look at, let's say, Restoration Hardware, all their photos that they show, it is not just, an armoire by itself. It is that in a nice room that it's all decorated and it looks good. And because of that, you just assume, okay, like this is probably well put together. But if you saw just the photo on Facebook Marketplace of the same exact piece of furniture, now you're like, well, what's going on with this? Is this well put together? You don't really know. So essentially, you need to make sure that you're getting a professional photographer in there, and you've got a couple of different avenues. You could do it yourself, which is typically not the best option. You got the real estate photographers, which they're really going to show like a wide angle just because that's what they're used to. But if you get somebody who understands interior design and staging and things like that, that's when it's game on, because people, especially if you're in the higher end of the design build world where you're doing nicer finishes, you want to make those finishes stand out. You want to show off like these are the little things that make this project worth what it's worth. So make sure you have somebody that's able to capture that, because that
Yeah.
truly is the full story of why that homeowner is hiring you specifically.
So I have one question here, but I'll emphasize this. So practical tip for anybody who's listening. If there's anywhere you need to start, we've got companies of all sizes. So some companies have their own marketing teams, content creators. Some companies are still solopreneurs are out there swinging the hammers in selling projects, just wanting to know how to market a little easier. We'll get to some of those things actually here in a little bit. But the first thing that I think Logan and I would stress is find a good photographer. It could be a family member. It could be just someone that you meet. Look at other interior designers close by, and if you're networked with them, ask them who takes their photos. You'll be surprised. A couple $100 a pop, get some really good photos. If you take 12, 15, even 20 photos of a recently done kitchen, you have potentially 40 or 80 pieces of content that you can share on social media. I mean, you can zoom in on photos, you can recycle them, you make separate posts, you can do collages, all sorts, right? So professional photos, if you can't do much of anything else, that is the one foundational block that
Yep.
you really need to start with. One of the questions we have here is, what about before and after photos? Are they still relevant, and where should they live?
Yeah, so before and after photos, super. I mean, people still want to see the transformation. I would say, and it's funny, my little brother, he started a pond company here in Charlotte a couple years ago, and he's actually doing work at my house right now. And one of his guys is out there with a camera taking photos, and they're still working on the project. And I was telling their guy, I was like, look, if like the during photos, you can still use those, but before photos are good too. But if you're gonna have 10 photos, you want 8 of them to be the after photos, or let's say 7 of them to be the after photos, 1 being during and 2 be before. So essentially, don't put so much weight on the before and during photos, because the after is what people are buying.
Yeah.
You still want before to show what it can look like, but at the end of the day, that is not nearly as important as the end result, because people kind of assume that you can do that. So if you are going to
Yeah.
make them live, you can have them live on social media. You put the after before, then the before. So it's kind of like this is what it can look like,
Yeah.
and this is what it is, because it goes back to what Instagram and social
One
media like.
Exactly. One tip. So we put a lot of before and after photos on Instagram. The after photo goes first, then the
Yep.
before goes after. And you swipe right to see what it looked like before.
Yeah.
That way, again, when someone's looking at your Instagram profile, it's full of beautiful photos, and the after photos are kind of hidden behind
Yep.
the other one. So
Say with on the website, you show before and afters there as well. So
yeah,
essentially, you just put the energy and emphasis on the after photos, because that is what people are buying, not the transformation, which is the before.
yeah. And again, just kind of focus on creating engage. So we talked about photos right now. Let's talk about a little bit about videos. One of the things that I'll just tag on to that, so we don't have to talk about it here in a minute, is when you do want to show progress, photos and video. A great way to do that is just Instagram stories. It's a way to stay relevant, keep fresh content in front of people, especially when you're producing really fun things that people are interested about. In the bottom right hand corner, I just kind of went back on one of Cornerstone's Instagram, reels. Story, whatever you call it. I can't remember what you call it, but like our saved stories. And there's just a bunch of videos that we'll shoot on an iPhone. It's pretty easy just to kind of tack that onto an Instagram story for the day. Like, hey, here's what we're up to today. We do some fun things there too. We'll do like employee interviews. We'll do, obviously installs, stuff like that is a really good place for stuff on Instagram stories. But so in creating engaging video content, you can kind of see here this bottom left picture that I pulled from one of your slide decks. Talk to me about this. When we're talking about engaging video content, what do you mean?
So what we really want is we want to show off the transformation that's going to happen in somebody's home. So what transformation means is not the before and after, but how people are going to be using their space. So something that I think a lot of remodeling companies forget is that with what you are doing in someone's home, you are truly changing the dynamic of how, let's say, that family's going to interact. So, for example, you're going to go in, you're going to redo the kitchen. It's probably going to be a combination of functionality of the kitchen with the actual aesthetic of the kitchen. Well, the kitchen is the heart of the home. This is where kids do their homework. If I got in trouble, it was getting in trouble in the kitchen. So everything is in this kitchen, and you're now stepping into somebody's home and helping them transform how the most common place in their home is being used with their family, their friends, their loved ones, all that stuff. So we want that story to be told, because what is also happening is as the client is walking through why they got it done, but then AJ is walking you through all the cool features that kind of talk about, well, this is what they wanted fixed and this is how we fixed it. What you're doing is you're showing off why you did that project, not just what you did. Photos are fantastic to show this is what it looks like at the end and let people kind of dream up the why. But the video and the story aspect of it, it's all of the stuff that HGTV has done a fantastic job over the years doing, and that's why they have an entire channel and offshoots of channels around it. It's the story behind the project itself,
It's
because
drawing me.
it allows
Yeah, it,
the
sorry.
prospects to put themselves in the shoes of, wow, that's just like me. I also have a family with young kids and we don't have a breakfast bar. And I grew up, I had a breakfast bar that I remember sitting there and my dad would make pancakes and it was great. And I'm seeing them have that breakfast bar. I'm going to call AJ because I'm
Yeah.
just like them. I know AJ can take care of me. That's the whole point of why you want to tell these stories.
Once you're bringing in emotions from homeowners that are they're excited, right? And these are real people. So not only does it bring like the trust and the confidence in, like, okay, they're not just making these pictures up. These are not Photoshop. These are not, we're actually in the space with the homeowner. Uh, it's a really good way for the homeowners to kind of draw the connection, right? So what you're saying is that a homeowner is in need of a project. They hate their home. They hate their house, their kitchen. Well, this person just got a brand new kitchen. Look how excited and like in love with their new space, and they're showing it off on video. I want to be that, right? So you're basically making that connection. We did this thing called empathy mapping. If you guys aren't familiar with it, if you have a marketing team, bring it up. It's a really good technique to understand a little bit more. Again, your ICP, your ideal customer profile, understanding a lot of the feelings and emotions that go into a remodeling project. It's called empathy mapping, and it really helped us dive into a lot of the concerns that our customers were having on the front end that we can actually answer through video. This upper right-hand side here is just a video that I felt like putting up from, this is a new thing that we're doing at Cornerstone, where instead of just video walkthroughs of a space, we're just showing off all the features and stuff. We're actually getting the homeowners to talk about their favorite features in their space so that not only can we show it off, but it's being narrated by the homeowners that are using them on a day-to-day basis. This customer, I don't know if you've been following along reading the captions, but you can kind of see that as they talk about specific things about the functionality, what they needed, what were their fears, what they like about working with our firm. We kind of edited all of those things to coincide with the images that we're showing on the screen as well. So it tells a really compelling story when you can do it that way. This is kind of where you bring in a little bit more of the process backbone, right? Because they don't have to read about the process. They can actually hear from another homeowner how amazing this process was working with Cornerstone, right?
Yeah, one of the big things to consider, and because we do this where we like fly out to people and do the videos and stuff, where you want homeowners that are going to be engaging and fun, and just like like age, like you probably wouldn't bring somebody on, somebody you bring into this webinar and they may have a wealth of knowledge, but man, if they are monotone and boring, people are going to drop like flies. It doesn't matter how good the actual content is, like you still need to have somebody that's able to like carry a conversation and stuff. And that's a big part of this with the customers, is if you're going to bring clients on, make sure that they are excited by it and not just like, that's a
Yeah.
range hood. Yeah, we just wanted one and Cornerstone did it for us. And you're like, all right, cool. Like,
Give me
let's move
something
on to the
more.
next
Give me
thing.
something more.
Yeah. Like
I,
that kind of stuff. So that's a big part of it. Is so like when we do a lot of our stuff, it's going to be like you have the clients in there that talk about the problem and what was going wrong, but a lot of it's the contractor, because it's the actual person who installed it. We're like, look, you need to get excited by this, because truth be told, if you're going to be very wet blanket as you describe what you did in your project, if you're not excited by your project, why should a prospect get excited about it, like
yeah.
what you're able to do? So make sure it's high energy, because the transfer of energy is a big part of why
Is a
people
huge
buy.
part of our sales process too. We have one question. I think I probably was saying it as the question came in, but one of the thoughts, what are the thoughts on showing your crew working? We don't do a lot of just a project during the stage alone, but during during with our people working. So I kind of touched on it. I'll probably briefly just say that like Instagram stories those are great ways to feature like low cost, what we call dirty videos. So they're just like just on an iPhone or camera phone, just kind of film the crew working. Great way to display personality in some of the content that you're sharing with your audience. Professional videos, really good to do when you're really trying to get, you know, employee interviews and talk about their favorite parts of the job. If you guys don't follow Cocoon up in Philly, if they're a remodeling design build company, they've done a phenomenal job with their branding. If you don't follow them on Instagram, you really should. It's Cocoon, spelled like the actual butterfly cocoon. Take a couple of notes out of their playbook. They do a great job up there as well, especially with their people.
Yeah,
So
and the one tip I will say on the people side is make sure it looks presentable. I can't
yeah,
tell you how many people from like we get headshots for like the website, and it's like their crew has their hood on, arms folded, not
paint and
smiling.
drywall.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, my wife is gonna hire you. Like she doesn't want that in her house. So like look engaging and look inviting. And if you're gonna film your crew, like social media, it should be, especially on stories, should be real, but you don't need to show like somebody like scratching themselves, smoking a cig on camera. Like make it so show like a good aspect of the crew working.
Yeah, what do you want people to know about your company and display
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll talk about this a little bit. So obviously we've got all this content now. I think everybody on this call and everybody watching this webinar later is going to be inspired to go out and hire a photographer if they don't have one already. Maybe they have one and maybe they're kind of lackluster on the video creation. So they're going to go out and try to figure out how to get more video and develop all this content. Now that I've got all this content, what do I do with it?
So now it's time to actually do something with it. So when it comes to the content, we want the professional photos, videos, things like that. In fact, MLS listings that have professional photos with it sell for, I think it's 49% higher per square foot. So if you looking amazing is not enough to entice you to go out and get a professional photographer to do this, do it for the money. All right. So at least now you're riding home with more money in your pocket. But now it's time to do something with it. And that's where social media comes in. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is just photos. When it comes to the photos of your work, on Instagram and on Facebook, this is going to be really good for, like, let's say a portfolio to show different aspects of the project, showing the full project, befores and afters, things like that. So when you have high-end photos, they play really well. So it's like specifically this one that I'm showing right here, that green tile, when you're scrolling through Instagram, you're not just scrolling through just remodeling companies' Instagram, you're scrolling through everything and everything is vying for your attention. So your work, you want it to stand out in a way where if that was, let's just say, white subway tile, that would probably not bode as well as far as like what's going to make people stop and go, whoa. I mean, in fact, like this one right here, I posted this just on my personal Facebook page just to say, hey, here's some cool shots from a client's project we did. I had people reach out and say, hey, where did they get that tile from? Like things like that, because it was visually pleasing enough for people to stop. So make sure that when you have these photos, now you want to start to put them out there on social media. Instagram and Facebook are going to be the two biggest ones because that is predominantly where your audience is going to be.
Yeah, and if you guys want, not to pitch my own, we're not doing everything right at Cornerstone. I think we've actually learned a lot from you, Logan. But if you want some other, inspiration, I feel like our marketing director here at Cornerstone does a phenomenal job too. So check us out, cornerstone.house. If you want some other ideas on how we display a lot of our content on our website, as well as our social media outlets as well. But this is actually kind of important. We got one question, actually more of a comment. This is from the social media group I'm a part of. But Paul asked me to bring this question, kind of to you, Logan. So he said he recently heard someone explain marketing as three pillars, right? So you have pillar one, which is content, which generates the demand, and then pillar two, content that converts the demand, and then pillar three, content creates advocacy and builds community. Right? Ways to connect with raving fans, nurture long lead time buyers, and reinforce the brand. So he says, we've been working on pillar three, ways to connect better with clients post project. We have a very good follow-up process and newsletter, but that's just base level stuff. So what he's asking is nurturing other potential leads leveraging some the post job completion content. Do you have any advice for Paul in like a good way to do that?
Yeah, so from my understanding, from what he's asking, just to make sure I'm on the same page, is great. We have this project. We did it for AJ. What do we now do with it to show it off more? Or I guess how would you?
I guess when we're thinking of using the content to kind of like nurture, like how do we stay engaged with previous clients? Through like after the project is completed, he says he's got a newsletter. Is there a way that we can use our content to nurture perhaps old customers, maybe customers that didn't end up buying from us? Are
Yeah.
there avenues that we can leverage to stay relevant to those folks?
Yes, and if you're good with it, I'm gonna hold off because because that's part of like the whole turning this onto your website into a page, using direct mail, using ads. It's now like the actual vehicle to get
Okay.
it out there. We'll get to that, but like that'll be a big part of this because your past customers is like that should be like 70% of like who's coming to you for your marketing.
Okay. Well, let's keep it rolling then. So, Paul will be so happy that I asked that I brought that up.
So,
uh,
videos versus images. That's the big one that we talk about a lot. And just so everybody's aware, photos are typically going to be an easier route to go than videos just because there's less variables associated with it. And to get video good, there's a lot of elements that need to happen. These platforms push video a lot more because what they see, because at the end of the day, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, they're businesses that are vying for you to stay on their platform. So you see ads, and that's how they make their money. So the more engaging the content is, the more that they go, wow, I showed this video to AJ. It made him stop and then stay on Instagram for another 3 minutes. Let's show this to more people so we can keep the money train rolling. Video is going to perform better as a whole because what it's doing is it is a more engaging media that keeps people around for longer. So when it comes to video versus photos, you want both, but they serve two different purposes. Your photos are really good for galleries. They're really good where somebody doesn't want to be super engaged. They just want to like kind of scroll through your stuff and see the different photos that you have, some of your projects. It's good when somebody's on your Instagram page already or they already follow you. The flip side is going to be videos. And when I'm talking about videos, I just mean for right now, the free stuff. It's called organic, but it's not putting money or boosting it or paying ads. It's just the free stuff. But the big thing right now, and this all really came about with TikTok, are the reels, which are the vertical ones that are 16 by 9. So it's essentially shows up on your full phone, like vertically. But that's what the new rage has been for the past few years, where people will now just scroll and scroll and scroll vertically going through different reels. Those perform better to bring people outside of your natural followers into your world. Because the way that the algorithms, they've just switched it over where it used to be, hey, Logan follows Cornerstone Remodeling. Let's go ahead and just show the content to Logan. But now it's Cornerstone Remodeling just put out a really good video. We think that people around the Maryland area are going to want to see,
People like Logan
yeah, they're
may
going to
be
want to see this stuff.
interested in,
Let's
yeah.
show this to more people. So now you're going to start to get outside people that don't really know who you are, but because they saw your content that was engaging and fun and they liked it, now they want to follow more of your stuff. So,
Well, not only that, but everybody on this call and everybody listening is going to also agree with me by saying when you end up watching one thing or you see one ad that you hover on for just a little too long, and I say too long, it's like when a shoe ad pops up in front of me. I'm a shoe guy. Somewhat proud to admit, when I hover over an ad, that company continues to pop up in my feed, even though I'm not following shoe companies on Facebook or Instagram, but I will continue to see those ads. So your content, even when not boosted, will begin to show up in their feed. So again, it's when you say bringing them into your world, you have really good content that kind of nets people in, like you've got this big fish net, and then all of a sudden they're in your community. And as you continue to push out new and relevant content, that content's staying fresh in front of them. So even if they're not ready to buy now, and when they are ready to buy in a year or 18 months from now, Cornerstone Remodeling was the company that they've been seeing over and over and over again. Then they decided to follow us because they like our content. And so it's a really good way to expand your audience.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I want to harp on for a second is the you just brought up like the timeline. I think a lot of people, especially if they're more mature and established in business, it's a long-term sales cycle. But people that are newer in the design, build, or remodeling space are thinking, well, our sales cycle might be, I don't know, a couple weeks long to a month long for somebody to make a decision. But in reality, somebody's probably been thinking about remodeling that space for months or years before they even take the next step, which is now doing research into it. So all the stuff that you're going to be doing on social media, when you start to do it, it's not like by week two, you're going to get a ton of leads and you're like, great, I'm validated, let's keep going. What is happening is you will start to notice that more and more people are engaging with your stuff, but the phone's not ringing anymore. It's what's called like the invisible hand. That's like you don't see it happening, but you will then get people that reach out to you like, hey, AJ, I've been following your stuff on Instagram for a couple of years now.
We've
I'm
had
ready to
that.
roll.
Yeah.
And once you finally hear those golden words, you're so glad that you were doing it. And you wish you would have actually started 2 years earlier. But a lot of people start, get all excited. It's like dieting. You need to lose 50 pounds. You eat a salad instead of a Big Mac for lunch one day. You weigh yourself and you're like, I'm not 50 pounds less. I'm going back to Big Macs. Same thing here. Stick with it. All right.
Yeah.
It'll take a while, but that's the whole game.
Yeah. Big time. So deploying specific targeted ads. So this is a question that I get a ton when I'm talking about marketing is so if I want to expand my audience on social media, what's the difference between a boosted post and an actual ad campaign?
Yeah. So
And what are they good
inherently,
for?
yeah. I mean, like realistically, it's just two different ways to promote your content. So they're both ads. A boosted post is just the way that you actually go about creating the ad itself is you have to actually like put the post out there first, and then you click a button that says spend money to show this to more people. For an actual ad campaign, you just go about it using like Facebook's like ad manager. It's just a different platform to doing it. But long story short, for both a boosted post, but also an ad or like a typical ad campaign that you're thinking of, you're both spending money showing something to a certain audience that you want. So it's just how you go about spending the money realistically. But at the end of the day, Facebook's going to take your money no matter what. So it's actually boosted posts is like it's harder. I mean, but you can still make it work. It's kind of like what's the difference between like two different video editing softwares? They both do the same things, but the buttons are in different places.
One of the questions that we have is, do you have any practical steps on scheduling and sharing to social media platforms? Um, I certainly do, because I've been in this. I've been in this. I know this particular individual and small company. I won't share any names, but it's a small company. Maybe could be wrong. 5 or 6 people: owner, operator, owner, salesperson, owner, marketing guru,
Doing
owner,
it all.
business. Doing it all. Um, a phenomenal company, but I know where this guy's coming from. Um, One of the things that I did, well, now I didn't have Canva back then, but um, I keep harping on getting if you have the ability, obviously, the photos, getting the photos from photographers is vastly important, right? So you have that, you get some professional shots done with the photographer. Um, Canva is a great way to start if you don't feel like putting together, if you really want some like um, creative. Uh, Canva's is a really good way to do that. They have a ton of templates that work with Instagram, social media. They will work with the aspect ratios, right? So that you need for particular content. If you don't want to use Facebook or Meta's ad scheduler, I will say it is a pain. I use Hootsuite, and Hootsuite is one of the many marketing platforms out there that will actually you can schedule posts in advance. So if you use Hootsuite, they actually do integrate really well with Canva. So you can actually just drag and drop photos in. You can add text, make the photos look really nice. There's a lot of really good videos on Hootsuite's website that show you how to make the most of that. So if you have Canva, you have professional photos and say a program like Hootsuite where you can just sit in front of a computer. What I would suggest you do is take 2 appointments a month for yourself, book it on your calendar. I'm going to take a Tuesday afternoon in the middle of the month and maybe a Monday morning in the beginning of the month. 2 or 3 hours is all you need. Sit down and schedule posts for the next 2 or 3 weeks. If you have an appointment on your calendar, treat it like a sales appointment. This is literally what I'm going to sit down and do because it's really important. This one appointment that I'm going to have with myself could mean that I'm going to get 10 to 15, fresh leads out of my 2 hour investment that I'm going to sit down and do this. Spend 2 hours, pull up Hootsuite. You can pull in templates. It'll actually show you how to post it to Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn if you want to use LinkedIn. I have thoughts on whether LinkedIn is valuable for people in our position. It can be. And then just schedule your posts. You sit down and do it one time. You schedule it over the next couple of weeks. I've gotten questions about cadence for this. It's all up to you. I'd say multiple times a week, you're going to want some sort of fresh content going out. Again, just to stay relevant. But those are some practical tips. Hopefully they're helpful. I don't know, Logan, if that aligns with what you suggest. I know you guys do a lot of your stuff in-house for people, but
Yeah.
for the guys that say can't afford to have their own marketing company come in and run with their social media, and they're just looking for a quick way to get posts out the door, that's one of my go-to solutions.
The biggest hang up for it's the emotional side of I took a photo of my own work. Does it look good? Does it not look good? So if you just get a professional photographer, that's why I'm such a big fan of the professional photographer, because it's not only is it a good final product, but you're no longer wearing the hat of professional photographer in your own company. And essentially by you like absolving yourself of that responsibility, it's actually now going to get done. Because even if you just hire somebody off the street, some high school kid that didn't know much about what you do, if you just give them professionally shot photos and say, great, make sure this happens, that you're good. The issue
Right.
comes when you have to be the ones to go out to the job site, line it all up, stage it, get the photos. You're going to second guess it. You're going to go, well,
Very
that
time
doesn't look
consuming.
that. It's all this stuff from an emotional standpoint that is going to stop you. So if you get a professional photographer and videographer in there, or just a photographer, hell, and that's somebody else's problem now, quote unquote, just schedule it out. It's super easy. Yeah, Hootsuite works, later, Sprout Social, stuff like that.
And
Um,
when we do send this content out, right? So I love the fact that you say connect the dots, because I use this expression all the time when I'm talking about marketing, because there's so much that people are seeing, and what we want to do is help them get to where we anticipate them wanting to go, right? So talk to me about connecting the dots for people and creating landing pages for them to go.
Yep. So you're going to have three segments of the market. You're going to have 3% of people are ready to buy right now. 7% of people are researching it, where they're like, I know I got to remodel my kitchen, but I'm trying to figure out what layouts, what this, what that. And then you got 90% that are nowhere near ready to even do the research associated with it. And that's the vast majority of the market, which means that maybe they're going to buy from you at some point down the line. The problem with how most people do marketing and advertising, especially in like the smaller business design build space, is they only focus on, hey, here's a project of a kitchen we just did. Here's my phone number. Call me right now. And that's going to work really well for somebody who's been following you for a while. They trust you and they're super low hanging fruit. But in reality, most of the market, the 97% of other people, they're not ready to buy yet. So we need to show them something that still paints you in a very good light, but it's not essentially saying, hey, the only option for you right now is to buy our stuff. So by creating really nice featured project pages, and what that's doing is that is telling the story of that project to the consumer. Now you have a really good place to send your social media, whether it's paid ads or organic, over to, because now what they're doing is, instead of saying like the nice photos or the nice video of you walking through the space, they can click a button, go over to a page that's dedicated to the before, the features of
Exactly.
this, the process of this, what the client says in the testimonial, all the so essentially
We're
it's
going to assume that if they clicked on that one post that you had on Instagram about that had one picture from that one job, they're going to want to know more about that job, right? So we're going to
yeah,
send them to a page that's about that job. I think that's
yes,
drastically important. That's why Linktree works really well on Instagram.
yep,
When you have a link in bio, when you can attach that link to take them to that landing page with the photo of from that post, it's clear. I'm going to go here. Yes, that's the post I was interested in. When they click on that, it's going to take them to this page I mean, we do this all the time. I don't know if you do this at all, but I follow Wall Street Journal. When I'm reading an article something pops up on Instagram I'm interested in, I'll click their link in their bio, and I'm looking for that that same
Yep.
post, and I'll click that post and it'll take me to the article. We need to treat it the same way with our clients when they're going through Instagram and they see this pretty picture of a kitchen. They're going to want to see more pretty pictures of this exact kitchen because obviously there's a reason why they touched that photo.
Yeah, and we just need to make sure because like this is like when you think about how you probably sell, and if you were on the Sandler one last week, all my whole team is Sandler trained, so we know pretty well how all this stuff works. This stuff follows Sandler pretty well because it talks about the problems and things like that, and then it walks them through the process versus just coming in and going, "Hey, you like this kitchen? This is why I'm the best kitchen remodeler ever." It's a
Sign
very
here.
yeah, and there's a book called Building a Story Brand that is like such
Great
a
book.
impactful book when it comes to teaching.
Right
Yeah,
up there.
we everybody like that's one of our core books that everybody at our company has to read because you got to know how to tell a story. This follows that same framework where it's what were the problems? How did you come in and help? What does success look like? Things like that. That's what we're doing is we're trying to take the pretty pictures and photos and then guide people down the journey of what it looks like to be a client of ours. And now they're putting themselves in the shoes. And in this case, if you're looking at the screen, it's Hannah and Charlie, and you're like, well, because like this client that this is one of our clients, and they go after a younger demographic of the market. They're going after 35 to 50-year-olds. So we're showing things that are more aligned with what a 35 to 50-year-old wants, which is more popping of colors and stuff like that. But it's also, we don't then want to show the story of an 85-year-old, person that has grab bars if we're trying to go after a 35-year-old market. So we just want to connect the dots. And this is back to Paul's question of how do you now take these past projects and do stuff with it? Well, we like to buy from companies that we know somebody else has already worked with. So if I am a friend of Hannah and Charlie's, which is what we're looking at here for this project, we have ads that are specific to them, and they're introducing themselves and they're talking about their problems and why they wanted this stuff done. So now that project is being broadcast out to the market as a whole. And if I know Hannah and Charlie and I trust Hannah and Hannah and Charlie trust Portico, A equals B, B equals C. Well, now I trust Portico because by association, we're in. So essentially, you're able to take the media that you have, and when you run ads that tells this story, anybody that knows them or anybody that could know them or looks like them or whatever it is that's in a similar situation, they're now going to feel like, wow, I had that same problem. I never quite thought about redoing my bathroom this way, but that actually makes sense. Now I'm going to keep this Portico company in my back pocket. So when I am ready, I already know who to
That's
call.
who I
And that's
call.
basically
Right.
how it all works.
It's a little bonus slide. I like the fact that you call this bonus because this one surprises a lot of people. Talk to us about the power of print
Print
media.
mail, baby. So when it comes to print,
Print in the digital age. I mean,
in the
who would have
digital age,
thought?
but I love when you can connect online and offline. I think it's called like non-line is like the official term, if you will. But when
Huh.
you connect the dots, it's what our goal is let's say we do a project at 123 Main Street. Well, we want people in the neighborhoods to know that we're doing a project at their neighbor's house because now they're going again, A equals B, B equals C, they're going to associate that with you. And then if they then get direct mail from your company that says, hey, here was this person's project that we did and it looks really nice, well, now they're going to actually see what was done. And then you have your truck that's driving all over town. So it's a different medium
Consistent.
to
Yeah,
just
just it's
keep. Yeah, I mean, it used to be like in the world of marketing, there was this thing called the rule of seven, which used to be all about you need to get your brand or company in front of somebody 7 times for them to like make a decision. It's now depending on like the price of stuff. Google predicts it's over 500 different touch points, and that's between social media, direct mail, hearing your name from somebody else, things like that. And when you have this media that you're spending money on, the worst stuff, and it gets us excited to a certain extent over here at our company, is when somebody comes to us to like redo their website, they're like, oh, by the way, I have a whole Dropbox of just project after project after project of these beautifully shot photos. And we're like, we can blow you away. Like we can create all this stuff from it, but you want to make sure that the leveraging of your media is everything. So with these bifold brochures, I mean, y'all do them as well. It's show off that project. And then the goal here is to guide people right back to that specific page on your
I see
website.
you have the QR code. That's really important.
Yeah.
It's trackable. Postcards really weren't postcards and ads via the postal service weren't really effective because there was no way to track them. But now QR codes give us that ability because if someone sees this and they're like, I want to learn more about this, when they scan it, we can actually track the effectiveness, the ROI on that particular mail campaign. So those are really important. One of the things that I highlighted here was we have a journey book. So after, and maybe this isn't as important for the print media, we absolutely use our stuff in print as well. We have postcards that go out to homes that are interested in buying. We put together a journey book, and this is one way that we, in the early part of our sales process, can show people, again, just walking them through particular pain points that previous customers had experienced. And we kind of walk them through particular projects. This journey book may be 50 pages long, and it's a digital PDF that we can actually turn into an actual like magazine. And it really just paints the entire story for a homeowner. We have a digital copy of it. I'm kind of showing it here on mobile land through the digital PDF. But again, it's talking about the process, right? We're just but through photo, through media, like, hey, we had these homeowners. This was there before. This is how we designed the space. This is what they ended up with. And one of the things that I told you last time is that we developed what we call a comfort zone budget range that we actually put inside of this journey book to let people know that the budget really is not the deciding factor in a lot of these remodels. It just sets some guidelines for us to really work through this conceptual project in that stage to set some guidelines for us to operate off. And in this book, we have this comfort zone. It's like a semicircle, almost like a speedometer that shows what their comfort range was. A particular client might have had, our comfort zone was 150 to 200,000. And we show where the project came in. So we have projects that came in under budget, that went over budget. The bulk of them were in budget, but you see kind of like where we ended up with in regards to their comfort zone. So that it also is painting the story like, hey, we're very conscientious of what we're designing in the space too, helping you achieve a kitchen or a bathroom or basement addition that's comfortable for you in regards to your financial, your budget. Or I can't remember what we call it, the financial investment, something along those lines. But it's a really good way to tell this story too, and print's a really good way. Like you have up here pictures of this space. You've got customer quotes. You have really good captions for these. By the way, another helpful tip for anybody who's listening. Instagram, Facebook, use ChatGPT. If you need to come up with some really creative and fun captions and you just don't have the time, ChatGPT, please help me come up with some really fun Instagram captions for this photo. Hootsuite kind of does this as well. They'll put hashtags in there. You can literally tell ChatGPT like, "Hey, I want to make this more whimsical," or "Hey, I need a 4th of July caption for this particular post." It'll come up. It like really harness the power of AI to help you in your business. It's really really important. So, oh, I thought I had one more slide, but I guess we're kind of towards the tail end, which is probably good. We're at the top of the hour. Um, Before I think, Logan, I'll just remind everybody there is one more webinar in this series called Maximize. Oh no, I hope I didn't lose
No, I
Logan's
got you
video there.
still.
Okay.
It might just be the camera died out. That's all right.
Oh, the battery. Yeah, the battery.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got you back though. So we're doing one more webinar. This one with Mike Valenti next week is on systems and processes. Mike has an awesome setup. He's gone from 0 to 40 locations in just a couple of years. He calls it a business in a box. He is so much about systems and processes and being able to roll them out to new locations that I think are very practical for those of us who don't want multiple locations to actually just roll out to perhaps just new employees or just rolling out new initiatives to your company. A lot of great insights coming from Mike. So if you want to register for that, I put a QR code on here to make it easy. I will also follow up after this webinar with an email later on this week, probably Thursday or Friday. I'll include this recording in case you want to share this with your team, your marketing team, or your sales team. And there will be a link to register for this webinar in there as well. But really, if you enjoyed this webinar, I'll leave the screen up for a hot minute here. Logan, thanks for sharing your insights. I put a
Yeah.
QR code here that goes to your website, to your Contact Us. If anybody wants to learn a little bit more about what you do specifically, Logan, or has questions about just how do I do this? Where do I start? you've been a phenomenal resource, I think, for me at Cornerstone to just position our company
Thank
a
you.
little better. And I want to make sure that everybody on this call has an opportunity to reach out to you specifically if they have some questions or follow up things. So scan that QR code; it'll take you right to Logan's website, Contractor Growth Network. But Logan, any final thoughts for us before we dip out today? I'm a
No, I was
contractor running a $1 to $5 million company, and what's the most important thing for me to understand about content in this world of just noise?
Yeah, design is going to come first. So how it actually looks is the big thing, and then be able to tell the story behind it. So I would say if you took one thing from this whole webinar, uh, go out and get yourself a professional photographer. That's a hell of a good start. So begin there because it will
Sky's the
help
limit
you out
after that.
so much. It'll
Foundation
help so
block.
much. Yep.
It's a foundation block, and after that, you can focus on some video content. Start easy.
Yep.
Uh, you leverage tools that make this social media experience and as easy as possible, especially if you're running it in house.
Yep.
And of course, finding the right marketing company, Growth Network. You guys work all across the country. If you have a marketing firm that works with you, try to work a little closer with them at developing some strategies to really help present your business really well. From just SEO, leveraging your content, your photos for like blog content, and then of course through social media. So a lot of really good ways to start. If you have any questions on how I did it with Cornerstone, I went from a owner operated. I was the guy who was I was doing all the marketing, the sales, the design, the managing production for years, and then slowly started to chisel out some things for my staff to do, so that I no longer had to do this. But I'm very familiar with running things from the ground up and getting started. So I have a lot of insights on that too. But Logan, I really do appreciate you being on this webinar today. Like I said, I'll share this webinar with everyone who attended as well as signed up, and we'll do some follow-ups. If you have any suggestions on future webinars, please feel free to reach out. I'm connected with a lot of individuals like Logan throughout the entire home improvement sphere. We're thinking about doing a few more webinars in the future, probably a different series, but we had a lot of good feedback from our last one. We're probably going to do that sales design build workshop, which will be actually pretty exciting to figure out. So if you're interested, like I said, if you are interested in that, please reach out, let me know. I can get you some of the deets. But overall, I appreciate everyone joining the webinar today. Logan, thanks again for your time. You made this very easy for me.
Good. Well, that was the goal. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks again. Appreciate it. See you guys.